Welcome, deep divers. Today, we're plunging headfirst into something really central to how we think about relationships happily ever after.
Right.
But here's the twist. We're actually going to challenge that. We're asking, maybe, just maybe, the most valuable connections aren't the ones that last forever. What if some of the biggest impacts, the real transformations, come from relationships that are, well, transient?
It's fleeting, yeah.
So to explore this, we've been looking at some great sources. There's this fantastic YouTube video using Studio Ghibli films.
Always a good source.
Absolutely. And surprisingly, linking it all the way back to Shakespeare, believe it or not, plus some really relatable personal stories that, bring it all together.
Yeah, our mission today is really to dig into these insights about transient relationships, the ones that come and go, and to see how they can actually offer huge, lasting value. It's not bleak at all, this perspective.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's just...
Well, it's deeply human, isn't it? It happens all the time. And thinking about it this way can be really transformative. Okay, so let's unpack this. This whole happily ever after idea. It often feels a bit unrealistic once you're an adult.
Right. Yeah.
And the sources really lean into that. They suggest, look, even the big relationships, family, best friends, partners, they aren't actually guaranteed forever.
Are they guaranteed?
Things end because of grief, or people just drift apart, or sometimes they just reach a natural end.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how the source argues that just because someone isn't in your life forever, it doesn't diminish the value they brought while they were there.
Right.
So instead of being depressing, it's like a lens, a way to see the real worth in connections that maybe weren't permanent.
Okay.
And Ghibli films, they argue, are just brilliant examples of this philosophy in action.
So let's talk Arrietty. You'll remember her, the tiny borrower, Arrietty. She's like 14, and she meets Sho, this young boy who's waiting for a pretty serious heart operation. He spots her during her first borrowing mission.
A very risky moment for her.
Totally. But Sho, he's gentle, he's fascinated, offers her a sugar cube. It's this immediate, quiet connection.
Yeah, but the conflict ramps up fast, doesn't it?
Yay.
The borrowers have this strict rule, don't be seen by humans.
Right.
And then there's the maid, Haru, who's a real threat. She actually captures Arrietty's mother, Homily.
Which forces Arrietty's hand. She has to break the rules, go to Sho, ask for his help to save her mom.
It becomes this kind of secret alliance.
And then the climax, saving her mother. But afterwards, the farewell, they part ways. They both know they probably won't ever see each other again. But the film doesn't frame it as sad exactly. It's more bittersweet, maybe even a little celebratory of what they shared.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, like you said, the impact of that brief connection is huge.
Yeah.
For Arrietty, she learns, okay, maybe not all humans are terrifying. Kindness is possible. It's like a formative first, well, maybe not romance, but a deep connection.
The first part, yeah.
But for Sho, the impact is arguably even bigger. The source says Arrietty gives him the will to live.
Wow.
He starts out as this, frail boy, sort of resigned to his fate, and he ends up a fighter. He's confident he can face the operation. She sparked something vital in it.
So it's not just about the shared moment. It's about how that moment fundamentally shifts your future path.
Exactly. It's a shift from thinking, what did I lose when it ended, to, wow, look what I gained from my own growth, even if the person isn't there anymore.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the film underlines this, right? The very first line. It's narrated by an older Sho.
Oh, right. I remember that.
He says, I'll never forget that summer I spent a week in the old house. It confirms he survived, obviously, but also that years later, that 1 week, that connection with Arrietty is still crystal clear. It meant something profound and lasting.
So he wasn't just saying it to be nice when he told her he'd never forget her.
Not at all. It proves the mark she left was real and enduring.
So the core lesson from Arrietty is appreciate what you got, the experience, the journey, the transformation. Don't mourn the lack of forever.
Precisely. And by not trying to force it, by not trying to make it last beyond its natural lifespan, you actually preserve something rare. You get a perfect memory, untarnished.
A perfect memory, that idea of capturing something in full bloom just for a moment that connects somewhere else, doesn't it? Somewhere surprising.
It really does.
Yeah.
And this is where the source makes that jump to, of all people, Shakespeare.
Right. Sonnet 15.
Exactly. Sonnet 15. The central theme is basically that everything alive, everything that grows, reaches its peak, its perfection for just a little moment.
Like a flower bloom.
Perfect analogy. Like a rose. It hits that perfect bloom, and then immediately time starts working on it. It starts to wither.
And in the poem, Shakespeare offers, two ways to kind of fight against that, to make something last?
Yeah, he suggests 2 routes to immortality for the subject of the poem. One is having children, passing life on.
Okay.
And the other is through writing, through art, capturing them in verse.
But the source we looked at suggests the third way, right?
Yes. And this is fascinating. They propose memory. The argument is that memories can be one of the few things that are perfect precisely because they don't change.
Because they're fixed.
They're fixed. They're snapshots. They aren't subject to that slow decay of ongoing reality. They remain pure.
Okay, I'm following. And they use a personal story to illustrate this.
Yeah, a really compelling one. About a solo trip to New York in their early 20s, like fulfilling a childhood dream. And on that trip, having this one sort of magical date around Christmas time with someone they met online, they call it a perfect memory.
And the key is why it's perfect.
Exactly. It's perfect because that person wasn't in their life forever. They explicitly say trying to force it, trying to make it a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Would only have slowly soured our appreciation of each other. It would have ruined the perfection of that single moment.
That resonates.
It's like, you know, that analogy they used, a beloved TV show. It's got maybe 2 great seasons worth of story, but they stretch it out to 5 seasons. At first, you're happy more show, but then...
It gets diluted. Worse storylines.
Right. You end up having a worse and worse relationship with the show. You lose that initial fondness.
You get that season 3 syndrome.
Exactly. Season 3. But Arriety and Show, they didn't try to force anything. They parted beautifully. So Show is left with Arriety captured in his memory, like that rose, in full bloom, forever perfect, no decline.
That's powerful. And this isn't just Arriety, is it? This theme pops up elsewhere in Ghibli. What about Spirited Away?
Oh, absolutely. Spirited Away is another key example. You remember Chihiro's journey, gets pulled into the spirit world, has to save her parents.
And she grows so much from that, like, sullen, scared kid.
To someone incredibly capable and brave. Yeah, a huge transformation.
And a big part of that is her bond with Haku.
A very intense friendship, yeah. The boy who's also a dragon and a river spirit. But this raises that important question the source tackles. Why doesn't the film give them a big reunion at the end? A happily ever after?
Yeah, why not? It feels like it could have gone there.
The argument is that doing so would actually kind of diminish everything that happened. It would almost trap the characters.
How so? Restrict their future, you mean?
Yeah, restrict their future. The source talks about the downside to happy ever afters in stories like this.
Okay.
The implication can sometimes be stasis. Like, okay, the struggle is over, the growth is done, the journey's finished, the future is just settled, solved.
I see what they mean. It implies an ending to development. But couldn't you also argue that long-term relationships allow for continued, deeper evolution together, not just stasis?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. And the source isn't arguing against long-term relationships overall.
Okay.
It's more about challenging the expectation that every meaningful connection must be permanent to be valid or complete. In storytelling specifically, ending with, and they were together forever, can sometimes feel like it puts a full stop on the character's individual paths.
Right. And when you look at Haku's role specifically for Chihiro,
it makes perfect sense. He acts as what psychologists call a transitional object.
like training wheels.
Exactly. Like training wheels on a bike, or maybe a child's security blanket. Something external that helps you navigate a really intense period of growth or change. Haku was absolutely crucial for Chihiro's development in the spirit world. But by the end, she's found her own strength. She doesn't need him in the same way.
She's graduated from the training wheels.
And that's not cold or cynical. It's natural. It's growth. It allows them both to hold on to that friendship as something fond, something inspirational. That pushes them forward, even if they aren't physically together anymore.
And you see this pattern in other Ghibli films too, right? It's not just these...
Definitely. The source points out Kiki's delivery service remember her friendship with the artist Ursula.
Yeah, who helps her get over her block. A temporary but vital connection.
Exactly. Or My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke. They all explore these kinds of impactful but non-permanent bonds. It's not that Ghibli never does traditional happy endings. Howl's Moving Castle or Ponyo maybe fit that more.
Right.
But those aren't the default. Exploring transient connections seems just as important, if not more central, to their way of looking at life and growth.
It's a really profound way to look at things, and honestly, very relatable when you think about it.
Incredibly relatable.
So just to recap this deep dive then, the big idea is about finding the immense value, often overlooked value, in relationships that aren't forever. When we don't try to force them into a forever box, they can actually become these perfect memories, like that flower captured at its peak bloom.
Never withering because it's held perfectly in that moment.
Right, it stays pristine.
So the question this leaves us with, really, is for you, the listener. What does this mean for you?
Yeah.
Take a moment to think about your own life, your own journey, all the people who have been part of it, even briefly.
People who came in, made a difference, and then moved on. Or you moved on.
Exactly. Each leaving some kind of mark.
So here's the final thought to maybe mull over. Instead of focusing on what didn't last, what wasn't forever, can you shift focus? Can you cherish those moments, those connections, precisely because they were fleeting? Can you see them as these perfect, captured memories that stay with you, always inspiring, never fading?